Well, good morning and welcome from ABET headquarters in Baltimore, Maryland. First, let me express my disappointment for not being with you in person for your inaugural Engineering Education Conference. But I think as most of us know, the current global health crisis prevented our ABET team from traveling at this time. We plan to reschedule and visit Dubai later this year, and we'll work with the leadership of the MENA Regional Engineering Education Society to make that happen. I'm often invited to present to various conferences and gatherings, and I like to talk about ABET accreditation and the impact of our work. But today I'd like to focus on the impact each of you can make in the classroom with your students. I think now more than ever, we need to educate and develop future technology leaders, those that will help solve the many complex challenges that are facing our planet. So with that, let me give you some examples of people I think have had a real impact on engineering education and the world. First, Greta Thunberg. I think most of you probably have seen her in the news. She's a young 16, probably 17-year-old now, climate activist from Sweden. And she's had a profound impact in spreading the word about the crisis that we face with respect to the climate and the impact on our world. She came to Washington, D.C. This past fall, testified to our Congress, and basically said, listen to the science and take real action. So her message was straightforward and clear: believe the science and take action. She also went on to talk about the false strategy of hope. That's not a very useful strategy, never successful, and went on to say, act as if the house is on fire. And in fact, this past year, we saw a lot of this. In Australia, in their past summer, they had devastating fires. Here's a map showing the extent of the fires that occurred over a period of several months. And as you may know, the fires impacted not only people that live in Australia, but also the native animals. Koala bears especially, they have a very slow metabolism and basically couldn't outrun the fire, so many of them perished, unfortunately. We also experienced lots of fires in the Amazon, and why this is important, other than the destruction, of course, of the habitat, again, for animals and for people, is the fact that the rainforest actually produces 20% of the Earth's oxygen. So that's not something that we can easily do without. It says in Brazil, specifically, they reported a total of an additional 72,000 fires, which is an 80% increase compared to 2018. Much of that as a result of the drier climate that's being caused by climate change throughout the world. Again, 10% of the animal species live in the Amazon, so the opportunity for them to become extinct is great. And thinking about the Middle East and North Africa region, this part of the world has been particularly hard hit as a result of our changing climate. As a matter of fact, we've been in almost continuous drought since 1998, and many estimate that this period has been the driest for the last 900 years. Unfortunately, 80 to 100 million people are exposed to water stress, and this will only increase. I was at the Dead Sea recently and had an opportunity to see this amazing water feature. But unfortunately, the impact by climate change is also affecting the Dead Sea pretty drastically, and many estimate by 2050 there won't be anything left except the salt residue that will be left behind. It also goes the other way in terms of water and the impact. You'll see in this photograph, it was in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia, and they've experienced almost annual floods that are caused by the sudden storms, again, initiated primarily through our changing climate. The city's rapid growth isn't helping, and so while on one hand you have extreme droughts, in many cases you have extreme floods, and so we need to figure out a way to handle them both. As many of you may know, 2019 was the hottest year on record in many parts of the world. And as a matter of fact, 10% of the Earth experienced these extreme temperatures. And if you notice on this map, you'll see the Middle East is it's not excluded from these extremes. The water stress in the Middle East, of course, is going to only increase, and there's estimates, as you can see here, how that's going to get worse and worse by 2025. And again, 80 to 100 million people are going to be exposed to these changing conditions. Fortunately, there's a lot of people in the world that are making a positive impact in many different ways, and the CNN Heroes is a show that is produced every year at the end of the year, and I happened to see this particular episode this past December. And each of these individuals have had a tremendous impact on the world in different ways, but I wanted to highlight one because I think it's a really good example of how we can continually impact not just the work that we're doing, but how we can spread that amongst our students. So in October 2015, this Indian lawyer, Afroz, had returned to Mumbai, where he grew up, and noticed that the environment had changed drastically from what he remembered as a child. And so if you look at this beach, Versova Beach in Mumbai, this is what he saw in 2015, and it was really in pretty awful condition. Trash, specifically plastic trash, was several feet deep and spread for miles. He decided that he wanted to make a change, and so he went and gathered a group of individuals, and they set out to clean up the beach, and this is what it looked like just 3 years later. So Afroz spent the better part of a few years cleaning up the beach, and it was quite impressive. He, along with his friends and colleagues, collected over 60 million pounds of trash, mostly plastic waste. But the thing that I found most amazing was his ability to inspire others, and you can see estimates that he brought over 200,000 volunteers into his cause of cleaning the environment here in Mumbai. And this is where you have an opportunity to impact your own students in the classroom. If each of you could inspire 50 of your students over your teaching career to go out and attack and solve many of these complex problems, and those individuals went off to inspire 50 others, and then those 50 went off and so on, over 5 short generations, or somewhere around 125 years, you could actually affect the lives of over 12 billion people. So you can't underestimate the opportunities each of you have to make a difference in the classroom, and really helping, again, solve some of our greatest challenges. One of the quotes that came from his talk that really I thought was spot on was this idea of, he went out to schools and colleges, and he was looking to create leaders that would help further this mission that he's on. And he said, if those kids can get it right, then the world will get it right. And I think that's exactly right. And this is the opportunity, again, you have in the classroom to inspire your students. So Daryl Pines, who's the former Dean of Engineering at the University of Maryland, spoke at our symposium a few years back. And here's a quote from his talk that I thought really kind of highlights this opportunity and really this obligation that we all have. You know, he goes on to say this generation of engineering students are socially connected and want to solve these societal problems. So it's our obligation and responsibility to improve the human condition as engineers, and we do that through educating this next generation of technology leaders. The good news is there's a lot of students that want to do this too, and you'll see throughout the world there's been a lot of protests because of a lot of inaction both at the government and industry level. And so again, students want to be part of the solution, so we should take advantage of that in the classroom and help inspire them, again, to look at opportunities to make a difference. I was recently in Melbourne, Australia for the World Federation of Engineering Organizations in their annual conference, and the Australian engineers committed to helping put sustainability first. And as you can see, they recently committed 1,000 engineers to putting sustainability first and taking on all new projects, which is quite encouraging. We've also seen a lot of increase in terms of demand for engineering courses that have increased with a focus on climate action. And so there's new programs being created throughout the world. You see renewable energy programs in the United States, Canada, Australia, UK, and other places. And so this is a real positive development. Here's some examples at the Cal Poly in the US. They have developed a number of different sustainability tracks within their engineering education program. And so students are really interested in participating in that. The University of Pittsburgh also has a program in sustainability and engineering. And so again, universities are really stepping up to meet the demand of sustainability education within the technology areas. Here's a picture at the University of Prince Edward Island. They've developed a school of sustainable design engineering, and so their focus from day one is sustainability in all aspects of engineering education, which again really is the right answer. I happened to see this in the Washington Post a few months ago, and this was quite encouraging because these are just 6th grade students, and they are developing remotely operated vehicles to help clean up the ocean trash. And as we know, I think most of us know the amount of plastic in our oceans is almost overwhelming. And so getting students to think about solutions to environmental problems at an early age certainly will help them as they mature, get into college, and then again focus on coming up with designs to help solve, again, our many environmental challenges. Again, here's an example of some engineering students developing a similar sort of device to help clean up the plastic trash in the ocean. Fortunately, we have some areas we can concentrate and have some discussion about sustainability and improving our world. I think most of you probably know about the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. There's 17 of them, and these are great because what it does is it provides us an opportunity to focus the discussion on ways to help address them. The other good news is that engineering and engineering education are a common thread through all of them. So while you don't necessarily need to dedicate specific courses to SDGs and how to address the Sustainable Development Goals, I think having the discussion in the classroom when you have the opportunity, and there will be opportunities to have these discussions, and use these as examples. It's a great way to, again, to connect with the students and maybe have them focus on specific items. If you address sustainability in general, while that's a good thing, it can be very difficult to kind of narrow the conversation. So again, using the SDGs as a focus area, I think, is a really good way to do things. The other aspect of students' experience during their college years is many of them want to go out and become entrepreneurs and develop the next big thing. And while many of them are oriented that way, you'll see, and this is an article out of Forbes magazine recently, that the next big thing for entrepreneurs is sustainability and coming up with sustainable solutions for many aspects of our life. So getting the students to talk about this, changing the conversation in the classroom towards sustainability as a good business venture, I think also will have a great impact. So please don't hesitate to do that. So the University World News recently published an article that I happened to see, and it talked about higher education's role in sustainable development. And really this is all about leadership. So at the university level, really what you need to do is implement policies and practices that really encourage sustainability in terms of the educational experience students are going to have during their undergraduate and graduate careers. But more than that, if the university leads by incorporating that into the vision, mission, value statements, strategic plans, and developing that culture of sustainability, that will go a long ways to encouraging or ensuring success. It goes on to say education for sustainability allows people to change the way they think and work, which is exactly what we need to do. Integrating sustainable development in all aspects of teaching, learning, research, and service. That may seem like a great challenge, but if you think about it, it's not that difficult to talk about sustainable development as you go through coursework, especially in the design areas where you can think about, great, it's great to develop electrification in terms of transportation, automobiles, trucks, et cetera, but what about all the aspects that go into developing that, and how do you dispose of lithium batteries and those kinds of issues? So integrating those kinds of discussions in your courses, I think, is a great way to encourage more and more discussion about sustainable practices and how students' designs will actually impact them. Goes on to talk about interdisciplinary learning, which I think we all know is a real positive and important aspect of students' career. I guess I'd just like to wrap up by saying, we have a unique opportunity and I think an obligation to influence students positively to focus on big solutions to our big global problems. So I challenge all of you to be influencers with real impact. Again, I think it's not difficult to do, but you have to be aware of it and consciously do that in the classroom as you teach your courses. So again, thank you for inviting me to present this morning. Again, I apologize for not being there. I know the entire ABET team was really disappointed that we couldn't make our visit to Dubai. We're committed to being there later this year, and we'll work hard with leadership to make that happen. So best of luck to you during these next few days of your conference. And again, we look forward to seeing you in the near future. Thank you.